After I lost everything, my son looked me straight in the eye and said, "Get out of my house. Sleep outside." I'm Thomas Whitaker, 67 years old, 40 years building a business, 40 years raising a family, 40 years sacrificing everything for the people I loved most. And this is how it ended. Standing on a frozen lawn at 8:30 p.m. on December 23rd, holding a garbage bag of my belongings, while my own blood threw me away like trash. My son Connor stood in that doorway, the same doorway where I'd taught him to tie his shoes, where I'd sent him off to his first day of school, where I'd hugged him goodbye when he left for college. Now he was using it to lock me out of my own life. "Dad, you're dead weight," he said. "We can't carry you anymore." Dead weight. That's what 40 years of love, sacrifice, and devotion meant to him. "Connor, where am I supposed to go?" I asked, my breath visible in the 52 degrees Fahrenheit. "Figure it out," he replied, already turning away. "I've got my own life to build." This story has more twists than a mountain road, and if you've ever felt invisible to the people who should love you most, you need to hear how this ends. Drop a comment with your city. I want to know if anyone else understands what it feels like to be thrown away by your own family, because what happened next changed everything, and Connor had no idea that his cruelest moment was about to become his biggest mistake. But first, let me tell you how a man who built everything from nothing ended up with nothing at all. Midwest Electronics wasn't just a business, it was my legacy. I'd started it in 1983 with $2,000 and a dream. We manufactured circuit boards for automotive companies, small scale but solid. Good American jobs for good American workers. For 38 years, we were profitable. Not wealthy, but stable. I employed 23 people, some for decades. We weathered recessions, technology changes, even the 2008 crisis. I was proud of what we'd built. Then COVID hit, followed by the chip shortage, then the flood of cheap imports. Orders dried up. Contracts got canceled overnight. By 2023, I was borrowing against everything just to make payroll. The final blow came in September. Our biggest client, Henderson Automotive, terminated their contract without warning. They'd found a supplier in China who could deliver the same boards for 30% less. I had to lay off everyone. 23 families lost their jobs because I couldn't compete with overseas factories that paid workers $2 an hour. The debt was catastrophic, $380,000. The bank wanted the factory. Creditors were circling. I'd already mortgaged the house twice to keep the business afloat. Connor knew all this. He'd worked at the company every summer through high school and college. He understood the numbers, the challenges, the sleepless nights I'd spent trying to save what my father and I had built. But instead of offering support, he started distancing himself. Phone calls became shorter, family dinners got canceled. Victoria would post photos of their expensive dinners and weekend trips while I was selling equipment to pay bills. "Dad's business is failing," I heard Connor tell someone on the phone one day. "We can't let that drag us down. We've got our own reputation to protect." Reputation? As if my life's work was an embarrassment. The house had been in our family for 40 years. My wife Sarah and I bought it when Connor was born. We raised him in those rooms, celebrated Christmas mornings around that fireplace, taught him to be a man of character and integrity. Sarah died 2 years ago, cancer that ate through our savings as fast as it ate through her body. Connor seemed supportive then, helping with medical bills, visiting the hospital. I thought grief had brought us closer. I was wrong. He was calculating. After Sarah's funeral, Connor started talking about practical arrangements. The house was too big for one person. I should consider downsizing. Maybe move to a senior community. I refused. This was my home, filled with memories of Sarah, of raising our son. I wasn't ready to let go. That's when the pressure campaign began. Victoria would make comments about the house being outdated and depressing. Connor started bringing up the mortgage payments, the utility costs, how I was struggling financially. They painted me as a burden they were generously carrying. The truth was different. Yes, I'd lost the business, But I still had my pension, Social Security, and some savings Sarah had hidden away. I wasn't wealthy, but I wasn't destitute either. I could cover my share of the household expenses. But Connor and Victoria had bigger plans. They wanted to sell the house and use the proceeds to buy a penthouse downtown. They'd already looked at properties, already talked to real estate agents. There was just one problem. My name was still on the deed. "Dad, you need to be realistic," Connor had said 2 weeks before that frozen night. "You can't maintain this place alone. The smart move is to sell now, while the market's good." "This is my home, Connor. Your mother and I built our life here. Mom's gone, Dad. You're living in the past." The callousness in his voice should have warned me what was coming. Connor had always been ambitious, but success had changed him. His tech consulting business was thriving, pulling in high six figures. Victoria's influencer career was growing. They moved in circles where image mattered more than substance, where an unemployed father living in their house was a liability. I'd raised him to be better than that. Taught him that family means showing up when things get hard, not abandoning ship when the optics look bad. But somewhere along the way, my lessons got lost in his pursuit of the perfect Instagram life. The night before they threw me out, I'd overheard them planning. "Once we get him out," Victoria said, "we can stage the house for sale. It'll show better without all his old man clutter." "He'll resist," Connor replied, "but if we make staying uncomfortable enough, he'll leave voluntarily." They weren't counting on me being stubborn enough to stay, so they escalated to force. Standing on Mrs. Peterson's couch that night, staring at the ceiling, I kept thinking about something my cousin Henry used to say. "Family is everything, Tommy. When the world turns its back, family is what you've got left." Henry had been estranged from the family for decades, building some tech empire out in California. We'd lost touch except for Christmas cards and the occasional phone call. I wondered what he'd think of his family now. Connor called my phone 47 times that night. I didn't answer. By morning, everything would change. Victoria's live stream went viral overnight. While I lay awake on Mrs. Peterson's couch, 350,000 people watched my son throw me out of my own home. The comments were brutal. "Toxic boomer getting what he deserves. These entitled old people think their kids owe them everything. Connor's so brave for setting boundaries." But there were other voices too. "This is elder abuse. That poor man built a life, and his son threw him away. I'd never treat my father like this." Victoria was loving the attention. She posted follow-up videos explaining their side. How I was financially irresponsible, how they'd tried to help, but I was too proud to accept their generous offer to downsize. The narrative she spun painted me as a stubborn old man, clinging to an unsustainable lifestyle, burdening my successful children with my poor decisions. What she didn't mention was that I'd never asked them for money, never asked them to carry my debts. I'd only asked to stay in my own home while I figured out my next steps. By 6 o'clock a.m., the story had been picked up by local news. Family drama goes viral as son Evic's father ran on Channel 7's morning show. They used Victoria's footage, showing me standing helpless with that garbage bag. My phone started buzzing with calls from reporters, neighbors, old friends who'd seen the coverage. Everyone wanted to know my side of the story. I didn't answer. What was the point? The damage was done. Mrs. Peterson brought me coffee and toast, her face lined with worry. "Tom, I recorded what happened from my kitchen window. If you need it for anything legal." "Legal?" I almost laughed. "Martha, they didn't break any laws. It's Connor's house now. He has every right to decide who lives there. But morality doesn't hold up in court." Around 9 a.m., Connor finally showed up at Mrs. Peterson's door. He looked exhausted, probably from staying up all night managing the social media storm. "Dad, we need to talk," he said when I answered the door. "Now you want to talk?" This got out of hand. Victoria shouldn't have live-streamed it. "But Dad, you have to understand our position." I stepped outside, closing the door behind me. "Your position? Connor, I'm your father. I built the life you grew up in. When you needed college money, who paid? When your business needed startup capital, where did that loan come from?" That was different. That was investment in our future. And what am I? A liability from your past? Connor ran his hands through his hair, a nervous habit he'd had since childhood. Dad, you're making this harder than it needs to be. We're not throwing you away. We're trying to help you transition to a more appropriate living situation. Appropriate for who? For everyone. You can't afford that house on your own. We can't afford to subsidize your lifestyle. It's not sustainable. The words came out rehearsed, like he'd practiced this speech, like Victoria had coached him on how to rationalize throwing his father into the street. I never asked you to subsidize anything. Your presence is subsidy, Dad. The space you take up, the utilities, the... He stopped, realizing how he sounded. The what, Connor? The oxygen I breathe? A news van pulled up across the street. Connor's face went pale. Shit. Dad, we can't do this here. People are watching. People have been watching since last night, thanks to your wife. Victoria's sorry about that. She got carried away. Is she? Because she posted 3 more videos this morning explaining why you were justified. Connor glanced nervously at the news crew setting up their equipment. Look, we'll figure something out. Maybe we can help you find a nice apartment. Don't do me any favors. Dad, please, work with us here. Work with you? Connor, you literally threw my belongings on the lawn and told me to figure it out. There's no working together after that. His phone buzzed with a text message. He glanced at it, and his expression shifted. I have to go. There's something urgent at work. As he walked away, I noticed him typing frantically on his phone. Whatever that message said, it had rattled him. At 6:15 that morning, my phone had rung with an unknown number. I'd ignored it, thinking it was another reporter. The caller left no voicemail. Now, standing in Mrs. Peterson's driveway, I realized that call might have been important. I checked my voicemail for the first time since last night. Mr. Whitaker, this is Richard Sterling from Sterling Morrison and Associates. I need to speak with you urgently regarding the estate of Henry Whitaker. Please call me back immediately. This is time sensitive. My hands trembled as I replayed the message. Henry Whitaker, my cousin from California. I hadn't heard from him in 3 years, not since his last Christmas card. I called the number back. Mr. Whitaker, thank you for returning my call. I'm sorry to be the bearer of news, but Henry passed away 6 weeks ago. I've been trying to locate you as a beneficiary of his estate. Beneficiary? There must be some mistake. Henry and I barely stayed in touch. No mistake, sir. You were specifically named in his will. Are you familiar with your cousin's business activities? I knew he worked in tech, but we lost touch over the years. Different worlds, you know. Mr. Whitaker, Henry was the founder and majority shareholder of Whitaker Technologies. The company went public in 2019. At the time of his death, his estate was valued at approximately $3.2 billion. The phone nearly slipped from my hands. I'm sorry, did you say billion? Yes, sir, and you are the primary beneficiary. I sat down heavily on Mrs. Peterson's front steps. That's impossible. Why would Henry leave me anything? We sent Christmas cards, maybe talked on the phone twice a year. Mr. Whitaker, your cousin spent considerable time researching genealogy in his later years. He hired investigators to track family members, their circumstances, their character. He was very specific about his wishes. Which were? He wanted his wealth to go to family members who demonstrated integrity, who understood the value of loyalty and commitment. According to his notes, you were the only relative who met his criteria. My mind reeled. $3.2 billion. It was incomprehensible. However, Sterling continued, there are conditions. Of course there were. What kind of conditions? Henry's will includes what we call a moral character clause. Well, also, to inherit, you must demonstrate that you've received the love and support of your immediate family. Specifically, your children must show evidence of caring for you in your time of need. The irony hit me like a physical blow. When was this will written? March 15th, 2019, but Henry updated the criteria as recently as 6 months ago, after conducting what he called family welfare checks through private investigators. He was watching us? Not invasively, but yes. He wanted to ensure his money went to someone who embodied family values, someone who had earned the love and respect of their children through a lifetime of sacrifice and devotion. I thought about Connor's behavior over the past months. The distance, the calculation, the cold dismissal. What if what if that support isn't there? Then the inheritance goes to the Whitaker Foundation for Elderly Care, which Henry also established. Mr. Whitaker, I've reviewed the documentation our investigators compiled. Your relationship with your son has been concerning. You know about last night? We monitor social media for any family developments that might affect the inheritance criteria. Yes, we're aware of the video. I felt sick. The biggest opportunity of my life, and Connor had destroyed it with his cruelty. So I don't qualify. Actually, Mr. Whitaker, that's not necessarily true. The clause requires evidence of family support, but it also considers the character of both parties. If your son's rejection stems from greed, entitlement, or moral failure, rather than legitimate grievances about your behavior, what are you saying? I'm saying we need to investigate further. The investigators will be conducting interviews, reviewing evidence, assessing the true dynamic between you and your family. This process typically takes 2 weeks. And if they determine Connor was justified in his actions, then you forfeit the inheritance. But Mr. Whitaker, based on what I've seen so far, I believe you may have a strong case. Your 40-year marriage, your business history, your community, reputation, these all speak to your character. Your son's public humiliation of you, on the other hand, speaks to his. Precisely. I thought about Henry, alone in California, building his empire while watching our family from afar. Had he seen something in me that I'd forgotten? Some strength that Connor's betrayal had obscured? What happens now? Now you wait. Continue your normal life while our team completes their assessment. But Mr. Whitaker, I should warn you, word of this inheritance will likely leak. When it does, people's behavior toward you may change dramatically, including Connor's, especially Connor's. People tend to become very loving when billions of dollars are at stake. After hanging up, I sat in stunned silence. $3.2 billion. Enough money to buy Connor's penthouse building. Enough to make Victoria's influencer lifestyle look like pocket change. But the real gift wasn't the money. It was validation. Someone had been watching. Someone had seen value in the choices I'd made. The man I'd tried to be. Henry had always been the smart one in the family. The one who saw around corners. Even from the grave, he was teaching us about what really mattered. I looked across the street at my house, where Connor and Victoria were probably planning their next move, their next video, their next public justification for abandoning family when it became inconvenient. They had no idea their whole world was about to change. There was one condition I needed to understand better. Richard Sterling's office was downtown, in one of those glass towers that screamed serious money. When I arrived for our meeting the next morning, the receptionist treated me like visiting royalty, a stark contrast from how I'd been treated 48 hours earlier. Sterling was younger than I expected, maybe 55, with the kind of understated confidence that came from handling enormous wealth. His office walls were lined with legal awards and photos with politicians and business leaders. Mr. Whitaker, please sit. We have a lot to discuss. He placed a thick document on the table between us, Henry's last will and testament. Let me read you the exact wording of the moral character clause. He flipped to a marked page and cleared his throat. Thomas Whitaker shall inherit the entirety of my estate, provided he can demonstrate through clear and convincing evidence that his immediate family members treat him with the love, respect, and support that his lifetime of devotion has earned. Should investigation reveal that his family has abandoned, mistreated, or exploited him, this shall be considered evidence not of his unworthiness, but of their moral failure, and shall not disqualify him from inheritance. I leaned forward. So Connor's behavior doesn't disqualify me? Actually, it may do the opposite. There's more. He continued reading. In cases where family members demonstrate greed, entitlement, or conditional love based solely on the beneficiary's financial status, such behavior shall be documented as evidence of the beneficiary's good character in contrast to his family's poor character. Henry thought of everything. Your cousin was brilliant, Mr. Whitaker. He understood that good people often raise selfish children, and that a person's worth isn't measured by how well their family treats them, but by how well they treat their family despite receiving poor treatment in return. Sterling pulled out another folder. Our investigators have been monitoring your situation for 6 months. Would you like to see what they found? The folder contained photos, social media screenshots, financial records, and detailed reports. I saw pictures of myself leaving the unemployment office, Connor and Victoria at expensive restaurants, Victoria's Instagram posts about their luxury lifestyle. Your son and daughter-in-law have spent over $60,000 on dining and entertainment in the past 6 months, Sterling noted. During the same period, you sold your car to help cover business debts and haven't eaten at a restaurant once. I flipped through more pages. They were watching all of this? Henry wanted to understand the family dynamics before making his final decision about the inheritance criteria. Look at this. He showed me a transcript of a recorded conversation between Connor and Victoria from 2 months ago. The investigators had somehow obtained audio from a restaurant dinner. Victoria: when do you think your dad will finally give up on the house? It's embarrassing having friends over when he's there in his old clothes. Connor: he's stubborn, but his business is completely dead now. Eventually he'll have to face reality. Victoria: we can't wait forever. The market's good now for selling. If we wait too long... Connor: I know, I've been thinking about ways to accelerate the timeline. Victoria: like what? Connor: make staying there uncomfortable. Stop including him in family stuff. Let him know he's not welcome. Victoria: that seems mean. Connor: it's practical. Sometimes you have to be cruel to be kind. Reading those words felt like being stabbed. My son had planned my humiliation months in advance. There's more, Sterling said gently. We have financial records showing Connor's been planning to sell the house since last January. He's already met with 3 different real estate agents. Before he even told me he wanted me to move out. Exactly. Mr. Whitaker, this evidence strongly supports Henry's assessment that you are a man of character being mistreated by selfish family members. My phone buzzed with another call from Connor. I'd been ignoring his calls all morning, 47 attempts since yesterday. He's persistent, Sterling observed. He doesn't know about any of this yet. That will change soon. Word of Henry's death and the inheritance has already started circulating in tech circles. Your son will likely hear about it within days. Sterling leaned back in his leather chair. Mr. Whitaker, I need to prepare you for what's coming. When Connor learns about this inheritance, his behavior will change dramatically. He'll apologize profusely, claim he was confused or stressed, that he never meant to hurt you. And you think it'll all be fake. I think it will be exactly what Henry predicted. Conditional love based on financial opportunity rather than genuine remorse or affection. I thought about Connor as a boy, how he used to help me in the workshop, how proud he'd been when I taught him to use tools, how he'd looked up to me. But when had that changed? When had I become something to manage rather than someone to love? What happens next? We continue monitoring for 2 more weeks. Document how Connor and Victoria respond to news of the inheritance. Record any conversations where they reveal their true motivations. Build a complete picture of the family dynamics. And if they pass this test, if Connor genuinely apologizes and changes? Sterling smiled sadly. Mr. Whitaker, Henry anticipated that question. The will specifies that any dramatic change in family behavior after learning about the inheritance will be considered evidence of gold digging rather than genuine love. So Connor's already failed. Based on current evidence, yes, but we'll complete the full investigation to be absolutely certain. As I left Sterling's office, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Hope. Not just because of the money, but because someone had been watching, someone had seen the truth about my situation, someone had valued the man I'd tried to be. Henry's moral character clause wasn't just about inheritance. It was about justice. After a lifetime of doing the right thing, of sacrificing for family, of putting others before myself, someone had finally recognized that devotion deserved reward, not punishment. My phone rang again. Connor, for the 48th time. I answered. Dad, thank God. We need to talk. I've been doing a lot of thinking, and I realize I made a terrible mistake. What kind of mistake, Connor? Throwing you out. It was wrong. Completely wrong. You're my father, and no matter what financial stress we're under, family comes first. Exactly what Sterling had predicted. Connor didn't know about the inheritance yet, but somehow word was already spreading, and he was scrambling to repair the damage. Where's this coming from, Connor? From my heart, Dad. I couldn't sleep last night thinking about you staying at Mrs. Peterson's. It's killing me. I almost believed him. Almost. Dad, are you there? I'm here, but Connor, I think it's too late for apologies. The conversation I was about to have would determine both our futures. Too late? Dad, come on. Family means working through problems, not giving up when things get hard. The irony of Connor lecturing me about not giving up when things got hard was almost amusing. I was standing outside Sterling's office building, watching expensive cars drop off executives, while my son tried to manipulate me over the phone. Connor, when you threw me out 2 nights ago, did you think about family then? I was stressed, Dad. The business is growing so fast, Victoria's career is taking off, and honestly, having you in the house was complicated. Complicated how? A pause. You seemed depressed, sad all the time. It was affecting the household energy. Victoria's followers noticed the change in her content. So I was fired from my own family for bad ratings. And now? Now I realize I was being selfish. We can make this work. We just need better communication, clear boundaries. What kind of boundaries? Well, maybe you could stay in the basement family room instead of the main house. Give us more privacy upstairs. And we'd need to coordinate schedules better so we're not all in common areas at the same time. He was offering to let me live like a tenant in my own home. Connor, do you hear yourself? I'm trying to find a solution that works for everyone. A solution where I hide in the basement so I don't interfere with Victoria's Instagram aesthetic. Dad, you're twisting my words. Am I? Because it sounds like you want the benefits of looking like a good son without any of the actual inconvenience of caring for your father. Another pause. That's not fair. What's not fair is watching your wife live stream your father's humiliation to 50,000 strangers. Victoria feels terrible about that. Does she? Because she posted follow-up videos defending your actions. She was just responding to criticism. People were attacking us online. I started walking toward the parking garage where Mrs. Peterson had dropped me off. This conversation needed to happen face to face. Connor, I'm coming over. We need to talk in person. Actually, that's not great timing. Victoria's filming content today. Make time. I hung up and called Mrs. Peterson to pick me up. 30 minutes later, I was standing on the front porch of the house where I had raised my son. Connor answered the door looking nervous, constantly glancing back toward the kitchen where Victoria was setting up ring lights and cameras. Dad, come in, but can we keep it down? Victoria's on a live stream. Even now, she was the priority. I walked into my own living room and sat in my old chair, the one Connor had probably already earmarked for donation. Connor, I need you to be honest with me. Why do you really want me back? Because you're my father, and I love you. When did you realize you loved me? Before or after you told me to sleep in the backyard? He sat across from me, running his hands through his hair. Dad, I know how it looked, but... How it looked, Connor? There's no how it looked about throwing your father out of his home. There's only what you did. I was trying to motivate you to make better decisions about your living situation. By humiliating me on social media? Victoria shouldn't have filmed it, I agree. But Dad, you have to understand. We're building something here. Our careers, our reputation, our future. And I'm a threat to that future? Not a threat, just a complication. From the kitchen, I could hear Victoria talking to her phone. So my father-in-law is back today, and we're working on family healing. It's so important to have these difficult conversations. She was monetizing our reconciliation in real time. Connor, answer me honestly. If I had money, if I could contribute significantly to your household, would your attitude toward me be different? Dad, this isn't about money, isn't it? Because your entire concern seems to be about how my presence affects your image, your lifestyle, your financial goals. That's not true. Then prove it. Sell the house. Give me my share of the proceeds. Let me find my own place to live with dignity. Connor's face went pale. Sell the house? Dad, that's our home, our investment, our future. Your investment? Connor, I've lived here for 40 years. I raised you in these rooms. My name is on the deed. But Dad, you can't afford the payments. I never said I couldn't afford them. You assumed I couldn't and decided unilaterally that I had to go. We can't sell. Property values are rising. If we wait another 2 years, there it is. This was never about helping me transition to appropriate housing. This was about you wanting full control of an appreciating asset. Connor stood up abruptly. That's not. We have to think practically. Practically? Practically, Connor, I should have thrown you out when you graduated college. Made you earn your own way instead of providing you with free housing for 6 years while you built your business. I paid rent. $300 a month for a house with a $1,500 mortgage. You want to talk practical? Let's talk about the $40,000 business loan I gave you to start your consulting company. The loan you've never mentioned repaying. That was a gift. It was a loan, Connor. I have the paperwork. But I never pressed for repayment because you were my son, and I believed supporting your success was more important than recovering my money. Victoria appeared in the doorway, phone still recording. Thomas, we really want to work this out. Family is so important to both of us. Are you filming this conversation? Just documenting our healing journey. Turn off the camera. But my followers are really invested in this story. Turn off the goddamn camera, Victoria, or I walk out of here right now. She reluctantly ended the stream, but I could see her fingers moving, probably posting updates to her Instagram story. Connor sat back down. Dad, let's start over. What do you need to feel comfortable living here? I need to feel like family instead of feeling like a burden you're graciously tolerating. You are family. Then treat me like it. Stop calculating my value based on what I contribute financially. Stop making decisions about my life without including me. Stop allowing your wife to broadcast my private struggles to strangers for entertainment. Those are reasonable requests. But I could see it in his eyes. He was trying to figure out how to manage me, not how to love me. My phone buzzed with a text from Richard Sterling. News broke. Prepare for incoming calls. Connor's phone rang simultaneously. He glanced at the screen and his expression changed completely. Dad, I need to take this. It's important. He was about to learn that his father was worth $3.2 billion, and everything was about to change. Connor stepped into the kitchen to take his call, but I could hear every word through the thin walls. What do you mean, Henry Whitaker was worth billions? My dad's cousin? $3.2 billion? Are you absolutely sure? There was a long pause, then, and my dad is the primary beneficiary? Jesus Christ. No, I had no idea. When will this be public? It's already public. Another pause, then Connor's voice dropped to a whisper. How do I make sure he doesn't lose the inheritance? Because of what happened this week? What kind of character investigation? How thorough? I heard him hang up and immediately start dialing another number. Victoria, stop whatever you're doing and get in here, now. Victoria rushed in from the living room where she'd been trying to restart her live stream. What's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost. Dad's cousin Henry died and left him $3 billion. $3 million? That's great for him, but billion, Victoria. Billion with a B. The color drained from her face. Oh my God, the man the videos I posted. Oh my God, Connor, what have we done? We're going to fix this, right now. They rushed back into the living room, both wearing forced smiles that couldn't hide their panic. Dad, Connor said, his voice artificially bright. That was my business partner calling about some industry news. Apparently your cousin Henry passed away recently. I'm so sorry for your loss. I studied his face. Thank you. Yes, Henry died 6 weeks ago. Were you two close? Victoria asked, already calculating. Not particularly. We exchanged Christmas cards, occasional phone calls. Why? Connor and Victoria exchanged glances. They were trying to figure out how much I knew. Well, Connor continued carefully, my partner mentioned Henry had built quite a successful company. Tech industry. So I'm told. Dad, this is amazing news. Your inheritance must be substantial. Why would you assume there's an inheritance? Well, I mean, if he was successful and you were family. Connor was fishing desperately. I let him squirm. There might be something. The lawyers are still sorting through everything. Lawyers? Multiple lawyers? Victoria's voice cracked slightly. It's complicated. Apparently, there are conditions attached to any inheritance. What kind of conditions? Connor asked, trying to sound casual. Character assessments, family relationships, that sort of thing. The blood drained from Connor's face as he realized the implications. His treatment of me over the past week might have cost him access to billions of dollars. Dad, about the past few days, I want you to know that Victoria and I have been doing a lot of soul searching. Have you? Yes, and we realize we handled things poorly. We were stressed about money, about the future, and we took that stress out on you unfairly. I see. We want to make amends, full amends. You can have the master bedroom back. We'll take the smaller room. You can redecorate however you want. This is your house, your home, and we respect that. Victoria nodded eagerly. I've already deleted those videos from social media, all of them, and I posted an apology explaining that we were going through a difficult time as a family, but that we've worked things out. You deleted the videos? Every single one. I never should have shared private family moments. What they didn't know was that Sterling's investigators had downloaded everything before it could be deleted. The digital evidence was preserved forever. That's thoughtful of you, Victoria. Dad, Connor continued, I know trust has been damaged, but we want to rebuild our relationship. Money shouldn't come between family. I agree completely. Good. So, are you willing to come home? I'm not sure that's possible anymore, Connor. His face went ashen. What do you mean? I mean the inheritance has specific requirements about family relationships. The legal team is conducting investigations to ensure any beneficiary has demonstrated proper family values. What kind of investigations? Comprehensive ones. Financial records, social media history, interviews with neighbors and friends, documentation of family interactions over the past several years. Connor was sweating now. Dad, surely they'll understand that families go through rough patches, that what matters is how we work through problems together. Maybe, but the lawyers seemed particularly concerned about public humiliation of elderly family members. Apparently, that's considered a serious red flag in character assessments. Victoria's hands were shaking. But I explained the situation online. I clarified that it was a misunderstanding. They have the original videos, Victoria. Deletions and clarifications don't erase what actually happened. Connor stood up abruptly. Dad, this is fixable. Whatever the lawyers need to see, we can provide. We can demonstrate that we're a loving, supportive family. Can you? Because the lawyers indicated they're most interested in authentic behavior, not performance. It wouldn't be performance. Dad, we genuinely want to rebuild our relationship. Because you love me, or because I might inherit billions of dollars? Because we love you, Connor said quickly. Too quickly. Connor, 2 days ago you told me to sleep in the backyard. Yesterday you offered to let me live in the basement with restricted access to common areas. Today you want to give me the master bedroom. What changed? We realized we were wrong. When exactly did this realization occur? Over the past day, we've been reflecting. You've been reflecting since this morning's phone call? Connor's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. Dad, I know how this looks. How does it look, Connor? Like we only care because of the money. And is that true? No, I mean, the money is wonderful news for you, for all of us. But that's not why we want to reconcile. Connor, stop. My son fell silent. I've lived long enough to recognize desperation when I see it. You're not trying to rebuild our relationship. You're trying to secure your access to an inheritance you think you're entitled to. Dad, that's not... Let me ask you something. If the lawyers told you right now that your behavior had disqualified me from inheriting anything, would you still want me to move back in? The question hung in the air like a sword. Connor's face cycled through several expressions before settling on something like resignation. Of course I would. But his hesitation gave him away. Connor, I think you should call your lawyer. My lawyer? Why would I need a lawyer? Because the inheritance lawyers mentioned something about potential challenges to the will. Apparently, family members sometimes try to contest character assessments through the courts. Contest how? mental competency hearings, claims that the beneficiary is too elderly or impaired to handle large inheritances, that sort of thing. Connor's eyes lit up with a terrible idea. And if someone were declared incompetent? The inheritance would likely go to the next of kin, with court-appointed guardianship. I could practically see the gears turning in his head. Connor was calculating whether he could have me declared mentally incompetent and gain control of Henry's billions as my guardian. Dad, have you been feeling confused lately? Forgetful? Having trouble making decisions? Connor, are you trying to establish grounds for a competency hearing? What? No, I'm just concerned about your mental health after everything you've been through. But I could see it in his eyes. My own son was preparing to destroy me legally to get his hands on money he'd never earned. The boy I'd raised, the man I'd sacrificed for, was about to try to have me declared insane. I stood up and walked toward the door. Dad, where are you going? To call my own lawyer. Dad, please don't do anything hasty. Let's talk about this as a family. I turned back to look at him one last time. Connor, we stopped being family the moment you calculated my worth in dollars. As I walked out, I heard Victoria whisper, Do you think we can contest the character assessment? Connor's response chilled me to the bone. I'm calling Morgan and Associates first thing tomorrow. If the old man can't handle his money responsibly, it's our duty as family to protect him. They were going to try to have me declared mentally incompetent, but they didn't know I was about to make a phone call that would end their schemes forever. The next morning, I sat in Richard Sterling's office with a new ally, Angela Morrison, a private investigator Sterling had recommended. Angela was sharp, maybe 42, with the kind of focused intensity that came from years of exposing liars. Your son filed a petition for competency hearing yesterday afternoon, Angela reported, sliding documents across Sterling's desk. Morgan and Associates, $15,000 retainer. They're claiming you're exhibiting signs of dementia and financial confusion. Sterling shook his head. Predictable but disgusting. He's trying to have you declared incompetent so he can control the inheritance as your legal guardian. Can he do that? Not if we're prepared, Angela said. Wisconsin requires clear and convincing evidence of mental incapacity, but Connor doesn't know we've been monitoring him, which gives us an advantage. What kind of advantage? Angela opened another folder. Wisconsin is a one-party consent state, which means if you're part of a conversation, you can legally record it without telling the other party. We're going to let Connor hang himself with his own words. You want me to trick him into confessing? We want to document his true motivations, Sterling clarified. If he's genuinely concerned about your mental health, that's one thing. If he's motivated by greed and willing to lie about your competency for financial gain, that's quite another. Angela handed me a small device that looked like a regular cell phone case. This will record everything with timestamps and GPS coordinates. The audio quality is perfect, and it's completely legal under Wisconsin Statute 968.31. What do I say to him? Nothing deceptive, Angela emphasized. Just have normal conversations. Let him reveal his motivations naturally. People who are lying tend to over-explain and contradict themselves. And if he says something incriminating, then his competency petition becomes evidence of his bad faith rather than legitimate concern, Sterling said. It could actually strengthen your inheritance case. I thought about Connor as a boy, how excited he'd get when I taught him to use tools, how proud he'd been when customers complimented his work at the shop. When had that bright, eager child become someone who would destroy his own father for money? There's something else, Angela added. We've been monitoring Victoria's social media. She posted this yesterday. She showed me a screenshot of Victoria's Instagram story, going through legal proceedings to protect family members who can't protect themselves. Sometimes love means making hard decisions. #family first, #tough choices. She's already spinning the narrative, I observed, and portraying herself as the loving daughter-in-law protecting her confused father-in-law, Angela noted. The comments are mostly supportive. Her followers don't know the real story. Sterling leaned forward. Thomas, I need to be clear about something. Once we start this recording process, there's no going back. If Connor reveals his true motivations, it will permanently destroy your relationship with him. Richard, he's trying to have me declared mentally incompetent to steal my inheritance. I think he already destroyed our relationship. Fair point. But some parents hold on to hope. I held on to hope until yesterday. When your own child looks you in the eye and calculates whether you're more valuable alive and competent or alive and incompetent, you realize hope is a luxury you can't afford. Angela stood up. Then let's get started. The competency hearing is scheduled for next week. We need Connor to incriminate himself before then. What exactly are we hoping he'll say? Anything that proves this isn't about your well-being, Sterling explained. Admissions that he's motivated by money, that he knows you're competent but is lying to the court, that he's using the legal system to manipulate the inheritance process. I pocketed the recording device. And if he's smart enough to stay on message? Thomas, Angela smiled grimly, greedy people are rarely that smart. When billions of dollars are at stake, they tend to reveal exactly who they are. An hour later, I was walking up the front steps of my old house, carrying a recording device that would either save my inheritance or destroy my family forever. Connor answered the door immediately, as if he'd been watching for me. Dad, perfect timing. Victoria and I were just talking about you. Were you? Come in, come in. We've been researching elder care options, and we found some amazing facilities. Places where you'd have professional support, social activities, medical oversight. Connor, I don't need medical oversight. Well, that's just it, Dad. Sometimes we don't recognize when we need help. The conversation I was about to record would either prove my son's genuine concern or his complete corruption. What I heard next shocked even me. Connor led me into the kitchen where Victoria was sitting with her laptop, surrounded by printed materials about memory care facilities. Dad, sit down. We want to show you some options we've found, Connor said, his voice artificially cheerful. I sat across from them, the recording device in my jacket pocket capturing every word. Look at this place, Victoria said, turning her laptop screen toward me. Sunset Manor. It's beautiful, and they specialize in early-stage cognitive decline. I don't have cognitive decline. Dad, that's exactly what someone with cognitive decline would say, Connor replied. The lack of insight is actually one of the primary symptoms. Connor, I just managed a business for 40 years. I understand complex contracts, financial statements, tax obligations. Does that sound like someone with dementia? But you lost the business, Victoria pointed out. That suggests poor decision-making. I lost the business because of market forces beyond my control, not because of mental incompetence. Connor exchanged a look with Victoria. Dad, we're worried about your judgment, like this inheritance situation. What about it? Well, you're talking about billions of dollars as if it's real. But Dad, people don't just leave that kind of money to distant cousins. It sounds like wishful thinking. The lawyers seem to think it's real. What lawyers? Victoria asked. Have you actually met with anyone, or are you just talking to people on the phone who claim to be lawyers? I stared at my son. Connor, are you suggesting I'm being scammed? I'm suggesting that elderly people are often targets for inheritance scams, especially when they're emotionally vulnerable. So you think Sterling, Morrison, and Associates is fake? I think you should let Victoria and me handle the legal verification. We can protect you from being taken advantage of. Victoria nodded enthusiastically. We have experience with business contracts and legal documents. We can make sure you're not being deceived. The audacity was breathtaking. They were positioning themselves as my protectors, while simultaneously planning to have me declared incompetent. Dad, Connor continued, even if this inheritance is real, $3 billion is an enormous responsibility. Are you sure you're prepared to handle that kind of financial complexity? I handled a business with complex finances for 40 years. But that was different. That was smaller scale, and you had employees helping you. This would be investment decisions, tax strategies, estate planning. It's incredibly complicated. So you think I need help managing it? I think you need professional help, people who understand high-level wealth management. People like you? Connor tried to look modest. Well, Victoria and I do have experience with larger financial portfolios. We could certainly help coordinate with professional advisors. Coordinate meaning what? Making sure you get the best advice, that decisions are made carefully, that no one takes advantage of your inexperience with this level of wealth. Victoria leaned forward. Thomas, we love you, and we want to protect you. If this inheritance is real, there will be people coming out of the woodwork trying to manipulate you. You need family you can trust to help filter those influences. And if I were declared legally incompetent, well, Connor said carefully, in that case, the court would appoint a guardian to make decisions in your best interests. And who would that guardian be? Probably your closest family member, someone who knows you well and has your best interests at heart. Someone like you? If the court determined that was appropriate, yes. I let the silence stretch. Through the window, I could see Mrs. Peterson working in her garden. She'd witnessed Connor throwing me out 3 days ago. Now she was watching me potentially record evidence of his attempt to steal my inheritance. Connor, let me ask you something directly. Do you believe I'm mentally competent? He hesitated just long enough to reveal the truth. Dad, competency isn't black and white. You're clearly intelligent, but you might have diminished capacity for complex financial decisions. Based on what evidence? Based on your recent poor business decisions, your emotional instability since Mom died, your apparent susceptibility to inheritance scams. So you think the inheritance is a scam? Another hesitation. I think even if it's real, you're not equipped to handle it responsibly. Connor, if I asked you to take a competency test right now, would you pass? Of course. What if I told you that Sterling Morrison and Associates has already administered cognitive assessments as part of the inheritance process, and I scored in the 95th percentile for my age group? Connor's face went pale. They tested you? Comprehensive evaluation. Memory, reasoning, financial comprehension, decision-making capacity. I scored higher than most people half my age. Victoria's laptop slammed shut. Then why are you making such poor decisions about where to live? The mask was slipping. Poor decisions how? Refusing our help, alienating family, being stubborn about practical arrangements. Victoria, are you saying that disagreeing with you's evidence of mental incompetence? I'm saying that isolating yourself from family support systems shows poor judgment. Connor's phone buzzed with a text. He glanced at it and his expression darkened. Dad, I just got a message from our lawyer. Apparently the inheritance investigators want to interview family members about your mental state. Is that a problem? It's concerning. What if they misinterpret normal family dynamics? What normal family dynamics? Like the fact that we've had some disagreements recently. You mean like you throwing me out of my house and live streaming it? Dad, we explained that was a misunderstanding. Connor, let me be very clear about something. There's no misunderstanding about your character. You've shown me exactly who you are. What's that supposed to mean? I stood up and walked toward the door. It means I know the difference between someone who loves me and someone who loves my money. Dad, that's not fair. Connor, you just spent 20 minutes trying to convince me I'm mentally incompetent while simultaneously planning to manage my inheritance. You can't have it both ways. As I reached the door, I heard Victoria whisper to Connor, "Do you think he's recording us?" Connor's response was barely audible, but crystal clear in my recording device. Doesn't matter. The old man deserved everything that happened to him. He's worthless anyway, and if we have to take legal action to protect that money from his stupidity, that's what we'll do. I stopped walking. Victoria continued, I just hope the incompetency thing works. I already put deposits down on the penthouse. Connor, it'll work. No judge is going to let a senile old man control $3 billion. I had everything I needed. I turned around and walked back into the kitchen. Connor, your lawyer just called mine. What? The competency hearing has been canceled. Canceled? Why? Because new evidence emerged that makes it unnecessary. What kind of evidence? I pulled out the recording device and placed it on the kitchen table. The kind that proves you know exactly how competent I am. The recording device sat on the kitchen table like a bomb that had already exploded. Connor stared at it with the same expression he'd worn as a child when caught stealing cookies. Dad, you can't... That's not legal. Actually, Connor, Wisconsin is a one-party consent state. This recording is completely admissible in court. Victoria's face had gone ashen. What does that mean? It means your husband just confessed on tape that he knows I'm mentally competent, but planned to have me declared incompetent anyway to steal my inheritance. Connor reached for the device. Dad, let me explain. I picked it up before he could grab it. Explain what? That you called me worthless? That you think I deserve to be thrown out? That you've already made deposits on a penthouse with money you don't have? I was angry. I said things I didn't mean. Connor, you weren't angry when you said those things. You were calculating. There's a difference. Victoria started crying. Thomas, please, we made mistakes, but we can fix this. How do you fix telling the world that your father-in-law deserved to be homeless? I'll post an apology, a real one. I'll explain everything. Victoria, the inheritance lawyers have recordings of you calling me dead weight and worthless baggage. They have evidence of you planning this whole scenario months in advance. An Instagram apology isn't going to undo that. Connor slumped in his chair. So what happens now? Now you learn something about consequences. I called Richard Sterling on speakerphone. Richard, it's Thomas. I have the recording. How bad is it? Bad enough. Connor admits he knows I'm competent, admits he's motivated purely by greed, and admits he thinks I deserve to be abandoned. That should end the competency petition immediately. Connor looked up sharply. Dad, please. Richard, I want to make a decision about the inheritance. What kind of decision? I want to refuse $2 billion of it. The kitchen fell silent. Connor's mouth fell open. Thomas, Sterling said carefully, that's a significant decision. Are you certain? Completely certain. I want $1.2 billion to go to the Whitaker Foundation for Elderly Care, as Henry originally planned. I'll keep $1 billion for myself. Dad, what are you doing? Connor whispered. I'm proving something your mother tried to teach you, but you never learned. That character isn't measured by what you accumulate, but by what you choose to give away. But Dad, that money could help our family. Connor, you stopped being my family when you calculated my net worth before deciding whether to love me. Victoria was sobbing now. But we need that money. We have debt, obligations. Then you should have thought about that before you live-streamed your father-in-law's humiliation for entertainment. I turned back to the phone. Richard, I also want to establish a trust that will provide Connor and Victoria with exactly what they offered me. Which was? Basic living expenses. Enough for a small apartment, food, utilities, and transportation. Nothing more. Connor stood up abruptly. Dad, you can't do this. Actually, I can. And Connor, there's a condition. If you want access to even that basic support, you'll need to complete 2 years of volunteer work with elderly care organizations. Real work, supervised work, work that teaches you what you clearly never learned about respecting your elders. That's humiliating. Not nearly as humiliating as what you did to me. Sterling's voice came through the phone. Thomas, are you sure about this approach? Richard, my son, tried to have me declared mentally incompetent to steal money he never earned. He called me worthless and said I deserved to be homeless. He planned my financial exploitation months in advance. I think basic consequences are appropriate. Victoria looked up through her tears. What if we refuse? What if we don't do the volunteer work? Then you get nothing, and you figure out how to pay for that penthouse on your own. The room fell silent except for Victoria's crying. Dad, Connor said finally, I know I made mistakes. Connor, you made choices. There's a difference between mistakes and deliberate cruelty. I picked up my recording device and headed for the door. Dad, please don't do this. We can work through this as a family. I stopped and turned back one last time. Connor, we stopped being family the moment you decided I was worth more to you, dead or incompetent, than alive and dignified. That's not true. The recording says otherwise. As I walked out of that house for the final time, I heard Victoria whisper, How much money did we just lose? Connor's response followed me out the door. All of it. But they were wrong. They hadn't lost money. They'd lost something far more valuable. And they didn't even understand what it was. 6 months later, I'm sitting in my office at the Riverside Senior Community, watching 47 residents I now call family enjoy their afternoon activities. The Whitaker Foundation for Elderly Care has grown beyond anything Henry could have imagined, funding communities like this across the Midwest. The irony isn't lost on me. I spent 40 years building a family with Connor, only to discover real family among strangers who needed what I had to give. Peterson visits every Tuesday for our chess club. She brings photo updates from the old neighborhood, where Connor and Victoria's house went into foreclosure 3 months ago. They're living in a studio apartment downtown now, both working retail jobs to pay off their debts. Victoria's Instagram following collapsed when the story went public. People don't like watching privileged influencers exploit elderly family members for content. Her luxury mom brand died when the luxury did. Connor has called 247 times. I haven't answered. The conditions for reconciliation remain the same. 2 years of verified elderly care volunteer work, followed by a genuine apology that demonstrates understanding rather than just regret. Some of the residents here ask if I miss him. The honest answer is that I miss the boy I raised, but I don't miss the man he became. Richard Sterling stops by monthly to handle foundation business. The legal protections we put in place have prevented any further inheritance challenges. Connor's recorded confession ended his competency petition permanently and disqualified him from any future claims. "Do you ever regret giving away the $2 billion?" Richard asked last week. I looked around the community room, where Eleanor was teaching watercolors to a group of former engineers, where Frank was sharing stories about his military service with younger volunteers, where Maria was video calling with grandchildren who actually visit. Richard, Connor thought family meant people who were obligated to love him regardless of how he treated them. But real family is people who choose to love you because of how you treat them. The foundation has helped over 15,000 elderly Americans find dignity, community, and purpose in their later years. Not bad for someone who was declared worthless and dead weight by his own son. Tomorrow, I'm flying to California to visit Henry's grave. I never got to thank him for seeing something in me that I'd forgotten existed, for creating a test that revealed character rather than just rewarding blood relations. If you've ever felt thrown away by people you loved, remember this. Sometimes the family that finds you is better than the family that loses you. Share your story if this resonates. I want to know what city you're listening from and whether you believe, like I do, that real family isn't just about blood, but about love that doesn't come with conditions. The inheritance taught me something invaluable. True wealth isn't what you accumulate, but what you choose to give away, and to whom. Some gifts are worth more than money, some families are worth more than blood, and some endings are actually beginnings in disguise.